So hi everyone, today this video will be about what are the habits, and I will say at least 5 ones, that are like one of the most important and the ones that the high successful people tend to adopt in their life in order to produce a lot more of things than the majority of the persons tends to do, even if we say, and it's what is real, everyone has the same time, everyone has the same 24 hours to work to produce, but some ones tend to produce more than other ones, and so that's where we're going to work on. First of all, to produce, what's like the meaning and what I want to say with producing. Producing, it kind of seems the ratio of what I produce in terms of output in comparison of what's the time that is needed to produce this output. Successful people tend to produce more in less time. They have a higher ratio than the majority of people. And this can be said that it comes with obviously some type of skills that they already have. They're kind of born with, so a bit more of higher intelligence, so they understand their world better, so that we can have produce and they do better habits that's gonna give us there so better type of outputs in coming so from the world because they understand him better and so they do decisions that seems to be better ones to be done, but the reality is they have and they adopt structure because even if we're so intelligent, even if we are so much skills, the reality is what sustains us to be really effective is a model, a system that we create that manage our day-to-day life. Our day-to-day life, if we're like the most type of intelligent people, we kind of have what we call as the autopilot mode that tend us so to go for things that probably are not that much productive, things that our brain likes more, that are like creates more dopamine, more pleasure to us. So try to procrastinate and not do stuffs are things that are normal to us. But unless you create the environment, and that's like one of the most important things, that even if you're intelligent, but if you don't adopt it, you're gonna suffer, is creating modulate your environment in order to always be motivated and have motivation to work towards something. And how this work? Normally, we have already have talked about people that say this expression. If you want to be smart, you want to always to walk and having friends that are smarter than you and to be included in groups with people that are smarter than you. And why that? Because if you see that you're in a group where you're like the one that has less intelligence, your status quo will not be like get stagnant and didn't do nothing. You're not gonna enter in procrastination. No, you're gonna get stimulated to be equal at least in comparison with other ones. So it will stimulate you to do more, to get so the level expertise with the people that you are surrounded, because they establish the level of reference of what seems to be good, even if in reality they're outliers. But if you just deal with them, our brain tends to overgeneralize in their sense so that probably everyone is that way, that the people that I deal with that super influence, so I need to get that level too, and so it's a stimulation. So people that are smart, they can work in creating an environment which they are all always trying to, and they will always get stimulated to act and do more. So that's why it's so important to not enter in autopilot mode and understand what are the decisions that we do. And one of them is understand the environment that I'm putting on, because environment obviously that I'm included on, it's complex. We suffer with feedbacks, and depending with people that I'm with, I obviously tend to suffer with influence, and that's why other type of law that we tend to see, that we're kind of the average of the 5 people that I give more and have more exposure to, and that's something that is close to this concept. So smart people, they tend to be the ones that have like higher ability of perception to modulate their environment and so create a good environment. So that's ones that tends to be more ambitious to get in certain specific type of organizations, as NASA, as any type of group in college, that they're kind of surrounded by intelligent people, so they are always implied to work more. And obviously have some clusters, neither and so constraints, and so neither everyone can like be present at groups. But that's why one of the things that has kind of come to fight this type of constraints that we could have and you called Argo that existed. One of them is so the internet. So having surrounded in our YouTube, getting subscribed in good channels, having the ability to get PDFs, ebooks, and even if they're for free, so surrounding with the ability of getting really quick, and so it seems something that most motivate us. If we create environment in our gadgets, which is so it's more easy to get access and exposure to this type of concept, this type of knowledge, is something that so is going to increase the probability of me consume this type of knowledge and so getting better. So the first trip is people that are intelligent, that they have to what we call as metacognition. They think about what they do, they think about the environment that they are included on, and so they tend to modulate in order when they enter in autopilot mode. The decisions will always tend so to make and to do things that contributes to be productive. So decisions, and they decide the decision to modulate the environment, which when they're in autopilot mode, they always will have like a higher probability to consume good products, to do good things, because they modulate people that they are do, they modulate their gadgets with so getting a more easier access to knowledge, and obviously have the important concept of having good connections, good network, having friends, and most and majority one thing that seems to have a correlation with being smart and being productive is having family that tends to already be like in the top tier of production in good perfections, because they as well tend to stimulate people to their sons, daughters, to be that way that they are, and so to kind of run the journey that they have been adopted as well to get in their places. So that's why it's so important, get surrounded with good people. If not people, surround with good our gadgets with like creating environment in our gadgets that were implied, and this is so comes to avoid things that they're kind of not the something that contributes to our final targets objectives. So imagine that I'm like someone that wants to get in being good as a doctor. Obviously what I should avoid the general things, so having the ability to have the metacognition and being enoughly intelligent, and he's more talking about emotional intelligence than just psychological and reasoning, and so that's why we talk so much about emotional reasoning, so the emotional intelligence being so much important as his logical one, and so sometimes it tends to be underrated, because emotional we tend to see the hikes people we're not talking about like the natural type of giftedness that we see people that are prodigies by their type of giftedness that they have. It's more productive people that's be the ones that have the emotional intelligence to do things that probably are not like the ones that give us more pleasure, but they modulate their environment. And one of the modulations, other than just the first one that I say, that stimulate and do good things, is and stimulate to do the things that don't make us productive. And one of them is avoiding things that don't contribute to our objectives. And so one of the things that comes close with their argument is the way that people have the ability to block social media. We see that a lot of people tend not to have like the ones that are productive. They tend to not have like social media. Other type of trick can be difficult, so they can put pins in their social media in order to don't have so high access or easy access to their social media. So it requires having to work, putting even increasing the hard work, increasing so the length of the pin of the social media, so they can as well uninstall sometimes, or they can even put some type of limits of time which they are present in social media, and that's obviously as well a trick that is useful to get so much more productive. Other thing that's important, and this is something that comes close with the concept of autopilot mode. We have to understand that majority of the time we're in a autopilot mode. That's so why it's important to work in environments in a way that so the way that we tend to act is in autopilot mode, and so we tend always when you're that type of mode we're like a bit more intuitive. A thing that comes in it's so useful when by giving that fact is working so in our environment to when we're doing intuitive type of decisions, we tend to be the ones that most benefit us in order to be productive. But another one that is useful is creating a system, is creating a routine. That's why people that are tends to be productive, and even more when you talk today, they always tend to create routines. They tend to create plan. They plan what they're gonna do next day. Probably they have already planned in the previous week, or they plan in the day before, because they understand that by planning we don't have like uh, considering that they don't have like to suffer already with stress is a thing that's benefit, because when you're like when you don't have like the doubt of what you're gonna do, you so understand what you need to do, and so it's something that it makes more easy. So your brain, your energy in your brain is they're gonna spend in doing the task and not so spending time in doing the decisions. So that's something that spends energy. So it's something that helps them to be more productive, because you're gonna have more energy to spend in doing the real task. And by planning, obviously, when we plan, we do decisions that are orchestrated, and they, if we tend to mark and so put them in our schedule, they contribute for one type of pillars that we can consider that we have in life: health, the successful career in your jobs. So they're kind of so are based in a logical sense when you plan something, in comparison if you just doesn't plan nothing. Decisions that we tend to do by our made decisions in autopilot mode, they don't tend to win. Like if we see in the reflection, they don't have like something in common with our objectives. They are more like things, a mundane type of pleasures and objectives that just like are followed and guided by the simple action of wanting and exploring, having pleasure in short term. That's not what contributes for the success in long term, and that's something that's really true. The ability to not fall in short-term pleasures in comparison with the long ones is something that if we made, and we did a study that has proved that people's, or in that case persons, not newborns but kind of 3 5 in that range of years people, so it's kind of not like kids that were put in a room that they're put a gum, and people, the investigators, said that they will come like 5 minutes later, and if the kids have not hit the gums, they will give like even more in comparison if they hit the gum. When they're gonna get alone, they're gonna be let alone by the people, that the investigators, that they will just come back 15 minutes later. They obviously, if they hit, so they will not receive a claim. That's so what they will like to experiment. They will like to make a division between the ones that they kind of had the ability to expect and have to wait, because the revenue will be higher if they didn't do the action that will give them more short-term pleasure, that is hitting the gum. And by doing this division, they so make the cluster have ones that have hit the gum, others that not, and they have kind of the ability to make company of the pathway that these children in each group has. And in average, the ones that have the ability to expect, so the ones that expect and not have not hit the gum, they were like in average more successful people in their life. So see how the scientific method has the ability to get so these interesting types, that people with having the ability to resist more to short-term pleasures in comparison with high-term, so they tends to be more successful, and that's something that it's true, and so we have to apply in our life. And sometimes these neither always, you have to always try to resist to stimulations. We can be smart. It's why smart is a concept that's important to be productive, because smart people, if they see that the tendency is high to kind of fall in doing short-term pleasures and not contribute for long-term success. What they do, they try to avoid having these triggers to do this. So smart people probably, if they understand that to be successful in their job, they don't have like to eat junk foods, and that's what they do. They don't have these junk foods in their house. They don't take decisions to bring them, and so have enough to suffer and have to spend energy to try to avoid so heat, because they don't have to do this exercise because they have already avoid bringing them to home. So this is other thing. Being smart is important to have reflection, planning, stimulating what's good, avoiding what's bad, and these like simple concepts that majority of people tend to have, and obviously they just need to do it more. They just have to be more first principles thinking, something that's adopted and applied by Elon Musk. Having first principle thinking, sometimes things have not to be complex, but we have to apply them to be real. Another thing that comes with first principle thinking is the Pareto law applied, so to be productive. A majority of things that we do, they are just like crap. They don't have like a high ratio of production. That's why it's so important, and that's why Pareto law is applied there, because it says 20% of the things defines 80% of the result. That's why we have to understand that apply in our life. What are like these 20% of things? And 20% of things probably are like having good health. It contributes for all things that I want to perform in my life, whether it is in college, whether it's in job, whether it is in having a good length in my time span. So it probably will be Pareto. Pareto, one of the things that comes and is present in the Pareto in our life is taking care of our health, having succeeding in our jobs. And there are things that if we're gonna go and apply Pareto in each one of these concepts, Pareto in health probably will do doing cardio in a certain way that science says how to say, and is something that is described in this channel in a video that I've talked about what science seems to say that is good for our life. Improve my health score is the video. And in job, applying Pareto law, I already have done as well a video understanding so what are the essential things that I'm got, so receiving money, what they pay me, do this type of thinking, applying critical reasoning is a process that's applied and is explained in this video that you have to see. So if you want to meet this last criteria to be a high successful and high productive people. So I have and I expect to have helped with this video, and see you in the next one.